Do young people really care about the future of our country or even their own community? It feels like every election cycle, we're bombarded with news and media claiming that young people are far more interested in scrolling TikTok than in turning in their ballots. But is that really true? I'm at least very tired of hearing it. Our guest today, though, is going to answer that question for us once and for all. Welcome back to Participation Trophy, the podcast where we sit down with millennial-ish leaders who are proving that our generation really is changing the world. I'm your host, Topher Williams. These days, we throw around the phrase building a movement all willy-nilly, but today we're really sitting down with someone who actually is building a movement. He's mobilizing young people across the country to not only participate in democracy, but to be leaders in their own cities and states. Please welcome to the podcast, Dakota Hall. Hi, Dakota.
Hey, Topher. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to get into the conversation today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I got to ask off the top, though, we talk a lot about young leaders at the Alliance. This podcast is supposed to be about millennial-ish leaders. How do we define what young people are?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a big question. I mean, you have millennials who range from 30 to 45. You have Gen Z, which is just under millennials, and you have Gen Alpha coming of age soon as well, too. I mean, really, it's like an odd generation where people have just now woken up to millennials are not the young people anymore, that Gen Z are young voters. And so I think for me, when I think about young people in the sense of our work, we're really talking about 18 to 35 year olds. And then even more so subsecting that out to 18 to 24, college age. Then you have high school age too. But, no one really has a firm answer on that. I think the needle keeps getting pushed back the more and more millennials get older, and they're like, please don't call me old.
Well, I'm a millennial, right? And I still fall into that, demographic that you just, barely, but I still fall into that demographic that you just talked about. Yeah. I recently was working on a campaign and they were like, we need to be targeting younger voters. And I said, okay, here's, a list of voters under 40. And they said, no, voters under 50. And so I think I'm okay, so if you're 47, you're still young by some campaign definitions, which I think is really funny.
That's rough.
But that's not what you're talking about when you're talking about young people, right? So can you tell us then how you are building a movement to support and build up young people and other leaders in democracy? Tell us about your work.
Yeah, I'm definitely not in the greatest generation versus baby boomer fight about who's younger. So happy not to be there. In my day job, I run a network called the Alliance for Youth Action. I believe that we are a powerful network of young people organizations across this country, really mobilizing and organizing young people in different advocacy-based building civic engagement electoral campaigns to change the future of this country. We saw much of our power executed this week with elections in California, New York City, Miami, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, Virginia, where young voters overwhelmingly came out and voted to say, hey, I don't necessarily like the direction of the country in which we're heading, and I think we need to actually change that. And we are the backbone of much of this organizing happening with young people across the country. What we are able to do at our organization is really provide in-depth, hands-on capacity building services, making sure that organizations have strong and healthy programs. What we also are able to do is we're also able to provide direct funding to organizations for these campaigns to actually have resources, for young people to have real money in their bank accounts to ensure that they can actually go out and organize their communities. And then thirdly, what we do is we really ensure that we are expanding the ecosystem by seeding new organizations. Even just last year, we helped seed a new project in Utah, a place that often does not get national attention or national investment. And so I think it's just really exciting that we're in a moment now where young people are really standing up and saying, our country is going the wrong direction economically. And we actually have to really talk about that in a deep way, that there is not enough affordability when you're thinking about how to afford a home, rent a home, affordability to go to higher education, going to the grocery store, going to the gas pump in many of these places. There's not enough building and infrastructure within our country in terms of the decaying and absolutely terrible roads that we see, right? Most young people are one pothole away from cracking their rim and blowing out their tire, from being in debt. And they don't want that, right? And there's actually a really good, strong call that like we need to have a new social compact with young people, similar to the New Deal programs, where we actually go out and employ young people to go out and fix our crumbling infrastructure and build new infrastructure like high-speed internet in much of our rural communities and indigenous reservations. And then three, we're in this like I'm a millennial. We're in this odd generation where some of us are having children. Some of us are also responsible for taking care of our parents in this moment. And all that comes down to is the care in our country is long gone, whether we're talking about childcare, healthcare, elder care. It's just so expensive to be able to take care of your family and your loved ones. And so I'm really happy that young people are really stepping up more so than ever. I believe between millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, we're going to have a trifecta of young people engaging at the highest rates our country's ever seen. And hopefully that also leads to social progress and an upheaval of what we're seeing as in terms of like failed capitalist structures that has left most people behind in the last 10 to 15 years.
Are you telling me that young voters care about things like infrastructure and the economy? And because this is a dumb question for me because I know that this is the case, right? And I know you do too. But I feel like when you go on social media or if, God forbid, you watch cable news, you hear a lot of like young people don't care about economic, they only care about these like fringe social issues. And it's like, I think people do care about fringe, so not fringe, but like social issues, right? But what I hear you saying is that young people really care about economic issues, these kitchen table issues that we hear, like candidates for office or politicians need to be talking about these so that they can reach older voters. Well, I hear you saying that will reach younger voters too. Am I reading that right?
As far as I'm aware, everyone in this country still has to use the dollar to be able to purchase things, right? And so I think we often box young people into issues that are just like not the kitchen table issues, that they are not making these adult level decisions, right? When you think about the rent of a place like in New York, where young people are spending $2,000-$3,000 and having 2 or 3 roommates just to be able to afford that. And I think about building, right? Like a lot of rural young people in this country really have a hard time of accessing high-speed internet. Many of these young people are also inheriting their family farms, et cetera. We actually need to go out and build there, right? Like our infrastructure is interconnected. I think inner city, we have issues, whether related to lead in our water still, almost 15 years after the biggest stories about it happen, that young people care about these things. And they also can care about other, fringe social issues or whatever people want to call them these days as well, too. I don't think young voters and young people are just one issue folks. I think what's top of mind for them right now is the fact that they can't go to the grocery store with $100 and actually feed themselves for a week, right? Like it's almost impossible to do that. Even in a place like Wisconsin, the price of beef and dairy products, something that we are known for with all of our farms, is really, really expensive. And some of these farms are, less than 100 miles away from where I live. And I'm like, well, should I just go there and get it myself instead of trying to go to your local, Kroger-owned grocery store? And so all this, I think, comes back to young people are deeply upset with corporations and billionaires taking money out of their pocket. And I think that is top of mind for many of the young people that we talk to. Many of the young people who are just like going through day and day about their own lives. And so, what happened in New York City with Mondami, I think, was only just one aspect of young people really thinking about affordability. You saw a similar turnout in Georgia, where the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition really led the efforts to get 2 Democrats elected to their public service commission and help lower the energy bills in Georgia as well, too, because those have also skyrocketed. Young people care about this stuff because their parents, their grandparents have been able to achieve things in this country, and that it doesn't seem that hopeful these days when you think about the economy and like where we're at. Unless you're Elon Musk and getting a $1 trillion payment part of your contract, but that's not everybody.
I'm glad you mentioned Utah. We actually have had some Utah folks on this podcast.
Hell yeah.
And one of the things that I think people don't know about Utah is it's the youngest state in the country, maybe the second youngest state after Alaska. I can't remember which one is actually the youngest state, but there are more young people in Utah, and Utah in the 2024 election was the state that shifted most to the left, but it's not known for being sort of this it's known for being really conservative, right? So I'm glad that you mentioned that. What should young people in states like Utah or other states around the country, what should they be doing? Like, how do they move their state forward?
Utah is a really good example of a state that the right might actually be moving to right for Utah in many of these situations, right? Like Utah is the youngest state in the nation. They also have a highly dense populated LDS population. And that community, that religious community, has some moral standing to it as well, too. And they're seeing corruption out of a White House. And so I think a lot of that is even the Republican Party and where they're moving is going beyond the more traditional conservatism of an LDS member within their congregation. And then additionally, not only just in 2024, but since Bush, not Papa Bush, but younger Bush, Utah has inched closer and closer and closer to voting for Democrats. And so over the last almost 30 years now, that state has really moved really further to the left. And I think there's an analysis there that are they moving more left or is the right just moving to right? That's really interesting. But to what young people should be doing in these places is organizing, right? Like having conversations and building community. And maybe some of these things aren't policy or political first. Much of what we know about young people right now is there is a isolation and mental health crisis within many of the youth communities across this country, especially with young men who do not have a friend group, who are going on YouTube thinking about, how do I kiss a girl and learning that from YouTube, or how do I talk to a young girl, going on YouTube and stuff like that. And so, I would say young people just kind of get out your house, right? That is what we're trying to move people towards is go have a friend, right? And I grew up in this era where Jackass, for any of those who watching remember that, where the worst thing a teen boy could do 20 years ago was to try to emulate Jackass and Bam and Steve-O and stuff like that. But now today, 20 years beyond that, the worst thing a teen boy could do is be a part of a Nazi group chat like the Young Republicans. And so I'd much rather have the Jackass days than what we're going through right now. I also, thinking about my own high school experience, I'm I probably did some shit that I would never do again in my life, but it was fun. We did it with friends and, kind of a little bit there. So I would definitely, what we're trying to do right now, build that sense of community, build that sense of belonging, don't force politics. And also just young people want events that feel fun. They don't necessarily feel like they're going to be educated. So I would encourage people to think about what does it mean to just host a Super Bowl party and watch football together. Go to the World Cup games or, go out to the bars to watch World Cup games. Now they'll be in America next year. Bring friends together for the Love Island and Love is Blind reunion shows. Yeah. Do karaoke nights, Pokemon Go things. Just go build a community with people. Community. Yeah. We always don't need to focus on politics. It's a dark time in politics right now. And just having a friend group that you can count on when you're in your darkest moments, I think is really, really important.
So you credit your grandmother for really shaping a lot of who you are today. Can you tell us a bit about her and about why you credit her for shaping you into who you are?
Oh man, she was a lovely woman who really raised me on two core principles. Don't half-ass shit. I was definitely the kid who I had my chores and I'd get a quarter or something ridiculous now that I think about it for sweeping. And I was just the kid who I'm all right, I'll just sweep the visible things. I'm not going to go to the baseboards or anything. I'm just going to try to get it quick done because I want my money. I want to go outside. I want to go have fun and play. Yeah. Right. And she always would yell at me and be if you're going to do something, don't half-ass it. And that's really stuck with me even in this work is there are quick ways to cut corners in politics and that often isn't the best solution to get things done. And the other thing that she really taught me was just you just got to stand up and you can't let bullies push people around. You can't really let things happen like that. And she was just the sweetest woman. I remember coming back from elementary school and I always used to get dropped out of her house. And she like always like would make sure like I had like a snack or something. I was just like I was a big boy. I want my little after school snack. And it was always like either like fresh homemade like potato chips with just like, oh, that fresh oil on it with like the salt and all warm and stuff.
She made potato chips like from scratch?
Yes.
Oh my
yes.
God.
That was like a special snack. Typically what I got was Fruit Loops or no, Fruity Pebbles.
Uh-huh.
And like, I still just get that like vivid smell sometimes of just Fruity Pebbles, just like whiffing across your nose. That like artificial sugar that like you can't really tell what flavor it is, but just like you know what you're getting. It's going to be crunchy. Truly an amazing woman who I think instilled a lot of the values that I try to still hold up today into me of just like you take care of people, you stand up to bullies. And if you're going to do something, don't half-ass it, because half-assing it only means you're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's a lesson that I'm still sometimes learning.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I think one of the things like often like, I feel like millennials go through is like washing and folding their clothes after it gets out of the dryer. I think it's like a really good example. I'm like, I've gotten really, really good at that because now I'm just like, well, I want to go to bed but there's a pile of clothes on my bed. Like, what do? You're just going to sleep next to your clothes or just like toss them away? So, and I think of her every time I do laundry. I'm just like, no, you can't half-ass this. You're doing laundry, go put it away. Otherwise, like, what are you going to do with your clothes?
I don't know where I'm at on this, but I have 2 baskets of laundry that are clean sitting in my bedroom right now. And I don't put them on my bed. I now put them, although my husband is going to listen to this episode and be like, that's not true, Topher. But I'm trying not to put them on my bed. And then but they go into the clean clothes. We have clean clothes hampers and dirty clothes hampers. And then they sit in the clean clothes hampers and I dig through them.
When you have to you just dig through them? Okay, so what happens if like you just you're in a button down right now. You don't put that on a hanger. You just like let it get wrinkled.
Okay, I did pull off a hanger today. I did pull this button off a hanger today.
But like when you wash it and dry it, is it going on a hanger or is it going to sit in the basket?
It depends. I feel like it usually ends up in a basket for like 3 days. And then usually my husband hangs it up at some point. And I go, thanks, honey, for doing the laundry. I will say, though, I've started I now hang everything so I don't really have to fold it, which that has actually helped me personally. So I guess everyone needs to find their own method. But I'm going to take a leaf out of your grandmother's book and I'm going to do my best you heard it here first, folks. I'm going to do my best to stop half-assing my laundry. I'm going to do my best to stop half-assing my chores, and I'm going to make sure that I'm, fully committing to what I say I'm going to do. So I appreciate that lesson. So I feel like a lot of people, but young people, but older people too, I hear this from everyone. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks face imposter syndrome, right? Like you're not good enough, or there's obstacles in your way that feel so big you can't get past them. And then you look around and you hear this the audacity of this straight white man, or the audacity of this leader to do that. And I always think to myself, like, man, maybe I should have more of that audacity, or like maybe I need to be a little more delusional. I don't know. But a lot of people say they face a lot of imposter syndrome. And I'm curious, like, what do you do when you feel imposter syndrome, or what do you do when you face obstacles that feel too big to conquer?
I always have to just remind myself that what I am going through is not new. That there were people before me who, are no longer with us, people who are older than me that have gone through the same thing, have gone through worse things. And still we persist, right? Like still we are here. And I think that's always been very keen top of mind for me when I think about, damn, these days are getting really hard, or, I wish I could go do that. And it's just like, you know what, in order to even be here in the position that I am, we had to go through a lot, right? We had to survive Indian removal. We had to survive Jim Crow. We had to survive the failure of Reconstruction. We had to survive the Civil Rights Act and everything that came in the 60s to really make sure that we got here. And if they still did what they had to do every single day, where some, when I think about inspirational leaders, it's the leaders of SNCC who really led youth movements, youth of color movements in this country in the 60s, is they got up and organized knowing some days they were going to get their ass beat. And that was a choice that they made. And they still got up the next day to go back and organize. And to me, I'm just like, wow, if they could do that, like, maybe I will go fight this Karen via email some days, right? And, because it is like, I'm not saying that we have it better, completely better. Like, we're still in dark times. But the work that we do ideally leaves it in a place so that the next generation has better conditions in order to get to the end goal, right? And I think that is a part of what I try to ground myself into is like, I know that in my lifetime, I don't think I'll be able to solve all the issues. But if I can leave the terrain of organizing in a better place for those who come after me to be able to move policy, move elections without the fear of authoritarian threats that we're underneath right now, then I got to go up and get to work. And so sometimes it's got to just shake it off of you. That knowing that, deep down, there is greatness, there is resilience and resistance in your body, because that how would it not be there when those who came before you held so much of it? So I think I have to just ground myself in looking behind to help move forward. And a lot of that comes from, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the Sankofa bird and how the bird is like moving forward, but also still looking behind, because there's a lot of history that we can learn from movement elders, from elders in general, about what they were able to go through and how that helps guide us moving forward.
Yeah, I really appreciate that answer. I sometimes think as a queer person that it is important. I like what you said about learning from elders, right? And I think as a queer person, sometimes that can be hard for me personally, because there's not a lot of like gay men over 60 because they all died during AIDS, right? And so it feels sometimes like there aren't elders in my community, right? But being able to look across the movement, and not to say there aren't, right? There are many out there still there, right? But understanding like what my queer elders went through in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Like being arrested and thrown in prison just for existing, right? Or not being, or being ignored by the government during the HIV/AIDS crisis and dying in mass, right? Like those those fights happen so that people like me could sit here and be like out on the internet, right? And like talk about this experience, and they're no longer here to like bask in the fruits of that labor. And so I really feel like it's kind of our responsibility to build on that. And like, if they were able to show up in that environment and not have their imposter syndrome stop them, like, by golly, I better not let it stop me either. Right. So I think that's sort of like looking back to how people in the past and our elders have faced imposter syndrome is actually like really, really good advice. I ask a lot of people how they deal with imposter syndrome, and that sort of looking back to move forward, I think is an excellent piece. I often like to talk about being delusional. I think it's really important to be a little bit delusional. If you look at a lot of powerful people, they're very delusional, right? Like you have to have a lot of delusion, and no matter who you are, right? Like you have to have a lot of delusion to run for president of the United States. You have to have a lot of delusion to be Lady Gaga. You have to have a lot of delusion to be on The Real Housewives. Like it doesn't, I mean, I feel like I talk about The Real Housewives on every one of these podcasts, but you have to have some level of delusion in order to do that. But I really appreciate what you're saying about looking back and looking to examples of past leaders instead of just sort of trying to like trick yourself into ignoring your imposter syndrome, because that does not work for everybody.
It doesn't. And everyone's going to have their own tools and, what helps get them through this. But yeah, I mean, the narcissism and delusion of like some of our, most prominent leaders in history is definitely real, right? Like some of it like is this like fresh paint of like idealism and optimism that like quickly goes away, especially in government, right? Like when I think about like the hope and like a first term Obama, it's like, we're going to be able to, structurally reform a lot of this. And Obama did a lot of things, but like at the end of the day, I think we're realizing how hard it is to actually change the government. But I do think we have to all figure out what tool works for us to fight the voices in our head that says, you can't do this. You shouldn't do this. You aren't the person to do this. But, we're all kind of here we're all here in this moment for a reason. And a lot of us are getting called to leadership, even though we don't want to. And even, the biblical story of Moses, right, even comes to mind often where, Moses didn't want to go be a leader. He was somebody who ran away, right, and said, "Oh no, this is not for me." And he had the stutter, and he wasn't the perfect leader. He didn't look the handsomest. He didn't talk the best. And the story about the burning bush, even though I'm not like a religious person at all, I think it's still like a good reminder of a call to leadership can hit you at any moment. So whether you are a believer, in Judaism or Christianity in that story, but still, when Moses was at the bush and the bush caught fire and he heard the voice of God calling him to be a leader, I think it's still something that we have to remember, that like the story of imposter syndrome is not one that's new today. You can even go back and read that the story and everything about Moses as also somebody who probably felt a lot of imposter syndrome as well too, and moments of great crisis like they were in the biblical story, and in moments like we are now. Sometimes you just got to get up and try it, and know that you have a community with you, that even if you don't get it right, you still have somebody to fall back on.
So what's your burning bush? Like, when did you feel that call?
Oh, when did I feel the burning bush? I've been doing like a few like organizing conversations, and people like, I was asked this last weekend as well too. And I was like, I've also had like 5 concussions in my life, which is a whole different story. So sometimes my memory is a little bit jogged, but I was recently just like walking around the house, like, I think before a call, listening to music, and I was just like thinking about that question. I was like, when did this actually happen? And I want to say like the first moment where I knew like injustice outside of like, just individualism. It might have, was it 2004? I was in like I wasn't even in middle school. I think I was like in elementary school. The Milwaukee Police Department had a case of police brutality with a man named Frank Jude. And I remember this so vividly because I was like, oh, like, why would so many cops like beat up this man? That doesn't seem right. And maybe it was like a week later or a couple days after this, I'm in school and the police come do like their ambassador program to talk about how great it is to be a police officer. Right. And I don't even think they had baseball cards or anything to hand out, which I was also disappointed by, because I was like, in other movies, I see this. And like, I remember them like being like, does anyone have a question? And I don't know what was it inside of me, because I was slightly a crazy child. But like, I remember like raising my hand and being like, so why did the police beat up that man? And they were just like, God. Oh, no, we're not answering this question. And I was just like, ever since then, it's like, I totally forgot about this moment in my life. But I think it's one of those things where it's just like, going back to what my grandmother told me, it's like, you just have to stand up to some bullies. Because to me, police brutality in like that fashion of what happened to Frank was just so atrocious. Like, you had multiple officers literally beating this man. So I think that may have been like my unknowing burning bush that like has led to, multiple different tracks of my life, the more that I've reflected upon it.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Dakota, I like to try and give folks like some kind of like action that they should take if they've made it this deep into the podcast episode. And I'm curious, what are 3 things that young people, or really anybody who's listening to this podcast, I guess they don't have to be young, what are 3 things that folks can do today to push back against authoritarianism in the United States?
Yeah. Join mass organizing. So whether that's No Kings protest, other things happening within your area, join it, show up. Look for organizations, progressive organizations within your area to join, whether that is a youth organization, a climate organization, women's rights, or organizations focusing on trans rights as well, too. Whatever that is, whatever that calling is for you, join them, show up, volunteer. A second thing, help push a new narrative. Don't just talk about what you don't like that's going on in the government. Enough people are doing that. You can turn on MSNBC, CNN, shit, even Fox News at this point, right? Like there's enough of people saying what they don't want. Go talk to some people about what you do want, right? Go present a positive future for this country. Go talk to some of your neighbors about how you think your alderman needs to be providing you something better. Or go talk to your legislator about how you think minimum wage needs to increase, right? Like, don't just sit in the negative. Also think about what we need to do positive to build the world that you want to live in. And then I think the third one I'll say is like, help achieve political victories. Whether that is working with a candidate, volunteering for a candidate, getting somebody that you believe elected, pushing for primaries. You know, if you feel like your current incumbents are too stale or not necessarily representative of the times in which they're in, and or also work with these organizations I talked about earlier to go help pass new policy in your state. Go help them run issue campaigns. Go make some phone calls to your neighbors and write letters to your legislators about issues that you care about. Because it's also going to take probably a refresh of who's in office for us to see that new world that you want to have as well, too. So I would say join the protest and organizing, join an organization that you deeply care about in terms of interest to help push a new narrative out there. And then also, you know, help achieve the political and policy victories that we want to see happen.
Yeah, great advice for young people, old people, anybody who wants to get involved and make a difference. I appreciate that. Okay, Dakota, so you are a proud Wisconsinite. Wisconsinite? Is that right?
Wisconsinite, yeah. Best state in the nation.
All right. So you are a proud Wisconsinite, and I've never been, I have to admit, but I really want to go.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to play a little game of this or that about Wisconsin here in a second. But like, what is something that like we need to know about Wisconsin that we don't know?
We are a hardworking blue collar state that deeply values community, people, and we're not necessarily known for our food. But if you want something fried, you got to come to Wisconsin.
And who doesn't want something fried? Let's be real.
Right. We could fry some stuff for you. Now, we may not be able to make a 5-star like Italian French dish or something. But if you want some fried cheese curds, some fried Oreos, some fried alligator, we're your place.
Oof, okay, great. Well, I definitely can't wait to get out to Wisconsin and try some fried food with you. So we're going to play a little game of this or that about, drum roll please, Wisconsin. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, Dakota. This or that, Wisconsin version, Lake Michigan or Lake Superior?
Lake Michigan.
I agree. Milwaukee or Madison?
Milwaukee.
Why Milwaukee?
Milwaukee has a deep, rich history as it connects to the Great Migration that I think has provided it a different level of culture that is unmatched. And I think that deeply rooted in my family as well, too, that Madison will never be anywhere near Milwaukee.
All right. There you go. All right. Packers or Badgers?
Badgers.
Winter snows or summer lake season?
Winter snows.
Winter snows. In Wisconsin?
Absolutely. The fresh coat of white snow that sparkles is unbelievable. There is nothing like it. It is so beautiful. But it's just that part. Once it gets dirty, it's not as cute anymore. But that first snowfall where you just feel like you're back watching the Charlie Brown Christmas movie, it's unmatched.
I feel that. I get that. Okay. So Summerfest or State Fair?
Fuck. State Fair. State Fair.
All right.
It's a tough one.
I've been to the Iowa State Fair. Obviously not the Wisconsin one because I've not been there. I've been to the Michigan State Fair. What sets the Wisconsin State Fair apart from other state fairs in the upper Midwest?
One of my favorite childhood memories is the milk station at the Wisconsin State Fair.
The milk station?
The Kohl's milk station.
Wow.
You could get different flavors of milk for $0.25. So you would have like banana, strawberry, chocolate, root beer flavor things. Amazing. The pig races We race pigs.
Okay, that
Who
I can
doesn't
get
like
into.
that?
That sounds fun.
Everything is fried that you can think of there. The carnival station, top tier. Though the giant slide is one of the places I got one of my first concussions in my life.
So careful on the giant slide.
Just be careful on the giant slide. Don't make sure a kid doesn't come behind you right away. Otherwise, their foot will hit your temple as you're getting up. But I think it's top tier. And there's more. I would just say like it is. Summerfest is a great place to also go to if you're in here. But there's like $20 beers, which as somebody from Milwaukee feels like a crime.
Yeah, it's
like,
criminal.
Yeah, I'm just not going to pay $20 for a Miller. No. I'm going to go to my dive bar and pay like $2 for a Miller High Life and like $3 for like a shot of like Jameson.
There we
and
go.
Like live my life.
There we go. I will say you're painting a very fantastic picture. Like I feel like I could have a fantastic afternoon eating some fried cheese curds, drinking a tall, cold glass of milk, and watching a pig race. Like that sounds really like a great afternoon.
And you can bet on them too. Like you can have
bet
a
on
fun
them?
group. Yeah, why not?
Win some money, baby. Let's
Absolutely.
go.
I'm gonna bet on the little chubby one too, because the chubby pigs, they got some speed to them.
Don't underestimate a chubby pig.
Oh yeah.
Dakota Hall. I love that. Okay, last question. Ready?
Yes.
Fish fry or Sunday brunch?
Fish fry.
Yeah.
Fish fry.
I
mean, no, man. Yeah, that's too easy. In Wisconsin, we love a good fish fry. Beer bettered cod? Oh.
My Michigander grandmother used to do a fish fry every 4th of July, which, before we started recording for the listeners, Dakota gave me a little bit of sass for being, I'm from Colorado, my family's from Michigan. He gave me a little bit of sass for being a Michigander since he's a Wisconsinite, but I feel like one great uniter is the fish fry.
Well, the sass was because you thought Michigan and Wisconsin were similar.
And listeners, I have been corrected.
You are on the other side of Lake Michigan. There's a reason we gave you the UP. Let's just put it like that.
Oh my God. Not a reason. UP. Okay, we could do a whole episode about the Upper Peninsula. We do not have time for that today. But what we do have time for is the most important question of this podcast, Dakota, which is, did you get a participation trophy and what was it for?
No, I haven't, which makes me like really angry. Like I just want somebody to be like, here's a participation trophy. Here's $5 million. Thank you for existing. I've
never heard of a participation trophy coming with $5 million. I think it usually is just plastic and worth about 25 cents. But
you should go read Elon Musk's new $1 trillion contract then.
Oh yeah, well okay, unless you're Elon Musk, who gets a $1 trillion participation trophy.
Or if you're friends with the Trump administration, I think just like you get a trophy too that has $5 million or more. So
well, it doesn't sound like you're a big friend of the Trump administration, so it doesn't sound like you'll be getting a participation trophy from them anytime soon. But there's still hope for you left. All right, Dakota, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming today. Where can folks find you or the Alliance for Youth Action online to continue the conversation, follow along, and learn more about what you're doing to build youth power across this country?
Yeah, check us out at the allianceforyouthAction.org. All of our social media is on there, or you can follow my Substack at dakotaray.substack.com. Happy to engage with everybody. We have to build a bigger tent and do more organizing.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Dakota, for coming on Participation Trophy. It's really been a ton of fun. I appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to see all the great work that the Alliance does between now and those midterms. So thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Participation Trophy. I'm your host, Topher Williams. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Participation Trophy Podcast, and follow me on Instagram at @TophMcGof so you don't miss one single thing. Until next time, remember, it's up to us to make the world that we want to see. Bye.